Welcome everyone. In this tutorial series we are going to be creating Crossy Road in Gamesalad. So here's some things to know. You do not need any programming knowledge. Gamesalad is completely UI based. I don't know what the real title is. And we are going to be creating this game in a top-down view, whereas in the game it is isometric view, as you can see in that picture, just for the simplicity of the tutorial. Though theoretically you should be able to create this game in an isometric view, just with different images and things. But moving on, in part 1 we'll be creating the game basics, all the movement and the looping, etc. And we'll be creating the different terrain types. Then in part 2 we'll be creating the obstacles on the different terrains, the trains and the cars, etc. And we'll be creating a game over scene and the menu buttons when the actor does die, and scoring system. And there may or not be a part 3. And that's all you need to know. We're just going to create a blank product here. You can create it on whatever platform you would like. I'll just choose iPhone 6 Portrait. So we're going to be creating the copy of the game Crossy Road. So first of all, just create a new character. Call this guy the hero, and call this one the road. Just so we can tell them apart, make him a nice yellow color, and create this guy something green. Okay, now in the scene we're gonna want, let's make this full screen. Okay, so we're gonna need these roads stacked up, and these are gonna be different things like the train tracks, the grass, road. But first we're gonna need to create ones that are about, pretty small, and fill up the entire screen. So you can decide how big you want these. We'll just go into the scene. The size of this screen is 667 high. So I'll just get calculator, and we'll divide this, say, by 18 squares, or however many rows you want. So 667 divided by let's say 17, 39. Well, let's not do that. 667 divided by 18, 37.05. Okay, so just go into your actors. On your road, when you click on your actors in the home, this will be universal. Whatever changes you make here will change everything in all your scenes. Whereas if you change it in the scene, it will only change what's in the scene. We'll show that later. I think it's 375 wide. Not sure about that. And like we said, 39.05 high. So then in the scene, this should have changed. Is it? Yep, it's 375. So then we will just fill this with a bunch of these. Okay, we are just about done now. It should fit right in, which it doesn't, but that's okay. I'll just shrink this down a little bit. And when you preview this, some of these blocks will be a little off here. You can fix all those. For now, for this tutorial, that's fine. Okay. And that should be alright. Now, we're going to want this hero guy to be about the same size or smaller as these blocks, right? So we'll make him about 35 by 35. Go into the actors, make him 35. Okay, now when you put him in here, it fits about there. works. Now, you may think this game is pretty simple, but it has some interesting mechanics. So this guy, as you click up, he will move to the next one, but this whole scene is moving down in the process. So all these ground pieces are actually going to be moving down, which will give the effect that this guy is moving up when he moves forward, and stays in the same place. But so go in here and select move to 70. Actually, no. Sometimes the move behavior can be a little weird. Here, I'll show you. If I go like this, sometimes it'll jump. It's actually being fine right now. So I'll keep it like that. But if I wanted it a little faster, sometimes it'll split up, which it's not doing, which is great. Okay, never mind. So that's great. And now all those pieces are moving down. But this section is empty. So let's fix that by going scene, wrap, Y. So now it'll just wrap. And we have this little gap here. So we need to fix that too. You can just go in here, make it a little bigger. Now it should be this seamless moving thing, and you can tell that it's moving with these gaps here. But when the game is finished, we're going to want all these to be different, like road, picture, train, grass, whatever. So just so we can tell them about what we're going to do is take a change attribute. So this will just change it when the scene initializes, and go to road, color, we'll take out the red, say random between 0 and 1. The colors are between 0 and 1, and you can see that here. Now, this doesn't really matter because in the end we're going to be using images anyway, but this way we just get some differentiation. Anyway, okay. So now you'll notice this guy isn't doing anything. And if we click any of the arrows, nothing happens. So what we're going to do is you can see all these layers, all these ground layers. And here we're going to layers, background. Hero's on top, make sure he is on top so that none of these ground are above him. And you can see they go top, to bottom, like that. We're going to want to set this guy to constrain his axis to what this layer's axis is, so that when this layer moves down, he will also move down. In this case, we're actually going to want to edit the scene hero right here instead of the default hero. So you will see that there's a lock here showing that if I unlock this, the changes that I make will only apply to the actor that's in the scene, and it won't be universal. But we'll just do that anyway, because you're only going to need this actor in one scene. And this way we can call the actors in the other scene. We can call their position, which we can do in the home. Okay, so we're going to constrain this actor's, the hero position Y, to the background, the third down, because this guy is sitting on the one that's third up. To constrain it to this position Y. So he will move, his y-axis will move along with that roads. You can see that is what it is doing. Oops. Just go back into the scene. But when we click the up arrow, we're going to want him to move to the next block. So what we're going to do is just create an attribute. You have to go into the home actor, create an attribute, do an integer, because we just need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. We'll just call this block on, or whatever, doesn't really matter. And then we'll go back into the scene, and we'll say when after key is pressed, up arrow, and the key is down, we're going to change the attribute hero, the attribute that I just made, block on, to the block on integer +1. So that way when I press the up arrow, and we'll use gestures and taps later on, but for now we're just going to use the up arrow on the keyboard, and this will make the block on attribute count by 1. So then what you can do is say, create a rule when the attribute hero block on over here equals 0, sorry. So you haven't clicked the up arrow yet, then it will constrain its attribute to the first block. And we'll just call this 0. And then we're gonna copy this and do that for the rest of the blocks. So block on equals, it's freaking out. Block on equals 1. Then we'll constrain its self position y to the next block. So it's going to be the next one down, and it's sitting on the third one down. Now we'll go to the fourth one, position y. Call this 1, and we can collapse these and just do that a bunch of times. 2, rename it 2, road position hero, scene, layers, background, then the 5th one down, position y. And this is going to take a while, so I'll fast forward this part again. We can just test this out now that we've done a few. So it starts right there, and then we press the up arrow, moves to the next one, moves to the next one, moves to the next one, moves to the next one. And then after you press up again, it does nothing because there's nothing assigned to it. So we'll finish that up. Go back. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. So we have magically created all 18 of these rules. And just to clean this up a bit, we can create a group, select all of these. Why is it doing that? Shift select all of these and create a group. Now that that's done loading, it put it all into a group, and we can just name this ground control, whatever, and collapse that. So then you have all those rules. We'll call this counter, collapse that. Okay, so now when we preview this, we should be able to move this guy up into all the different layers. You can just climb this ladder, and that's great. But now he's stuck when I get to the last group, when I get to the last ground piece. So we'll go back, and that's simply fixed. You can just create a rule. We'll put it above this. we'll just say attribute, when the attribute block on equals 18. So when you're on the 18th block, equals 18, then change that attribute back to the first block, which is at 0. Change attribute block on. Change attribute block on back to 0. And that should fix your problems. We'll preview this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And it works. We can just climb this ladder. We click up a bunch of times. So yeah. Already you can see this kind of come together. Also, you'll note that his movement is jumpy, not like that smooth motion that happens in the actual game, but we will get to that later. And you can see you can easily move up through this without having it set back to 0 like it does in the game. When you start going up, eventually the ground pieces will move quicker down. So let's just create a rule. As you can see, when I go into this home actor, none of those things that I created are there. Why? Because I just created it in the scene. So if you go back into the scene, you can see that all those things are back where they're supposed to be. I'll just go back on this guy. You can collapse this. Whatever. We'll just collapse that. And so now, let's pause for a second. Cut this out. Okay. Now, we're going to create a global attribute. So, let's go back into this scene here. And when you create an attribute in this inspector here, in the game, that attribute will be accessible to all the different actors. Not only in the scene, but in the entire game. We're going to create a real attribute because we need an attribute with decimals. And we're going to use this and we're going to assign this to this hero's Y axis. So we'll call this hero Y, and then go back into here. And we will say constrain attribute. By the way, constrain attribute just means that basically you're changing that attribute every time it changes. I don't know really how to phrase that. Sorry, but it just is always going to stay that way. Whereas if you say change attribute, it's only going to change the attribute once instead of constantly changing the attribute to what it currently is. So we're going to go to the game, because I created it in the game tab, hero Y, constrain hero Y, to this guy's Y position. Hero position Y. Okay, and then we can go into this ground road pieces here. We're going to create a rule that says when the hero gets above a certain point, we're going to move faster down to our original position. So, we'll just say create rule. When the attribute, if the attribute game dot hero Y is greater than, I don't know why it's freaking out, is greater than, I don't know, what is that, probably around 300, then we're going to, first let's add an attribute here, Boolean, which is just a true or false variable. When this is greater than 300, we're going to make this Boolean attribute true. So we're going to say above 300. And so we're going to say when this is above 300, change the attribute above 300 to true. And this way we can just let this guy decide whether he wants to go slowly or quickly. And so road above 300 to true. And we'll say, actually we're going to say constrain this attribute, because I'm going to want to always know whether he's above 300 or not, so that when he gets to 300 we can change it back to this slow movement here. So when this constrain attribute above 300, to true, get rid of that, and then we'll just say otherwise constrain the attribute, copy that, to false. You don't really need a constrain here since it'll change, but either way it works. And so now we'll create a rule that if it's not above 300, so if this is false, we'll have it move slowly down. Create a rule. If the attribute above 300 now technically we could have done this in this while we were using above 300, but it doesn't really matter. When this attribute above 300 is false, move this guy like that. And on the other side of things, if it's true, then we'll change this to 40. And let's just see if that works. So right now I'm at about 80. And as you can see, it starts going faster. Let's change that to more like something like 200 so you can see the speed better. Let's save this. So right now I'm below, it's moving really slow. And if I move up, it starts moving fast. But that's not at all how we really want it. And 300's a little high, 300's right here. So let's move it to about 200. The attribute that says if it's going to go fast or not. So instead of above 300, we'll just do above 200. Okay. So now it should start moving fast. And this is a little drastic, but you can change these values to whatever you want so that it's harder to go up. And at this point, with all the obstacles, you would have run into that by now. Alright, So this is looking pretty great, but you're gonna say, well, there's no obstacles here. This isn't a game, and I can't even move right or left this guy. So let's do that right now. Go into the scene, select our hero guy, and let's just say, let's create a rule. When I click the right key, when the right key is pressed down, then we're gonna change the attribute. We're gonna change his X attribute to X plus 70, double his width. So change his hero position X to his X position, hero position X plus 70. Now what we can do is move him to the right. Sorry, not 70. His width, 35. I don't know why. Okay, plus 3. So plus 35, and we'll copy this do the same for the left. Copy and paste that. Left key, and just do his position X minus 35. Alright, now we can move around a little more. And this is starting to be pretty cool. Alright, so now what we're going to want to do is create, well, yeah. So we're going to need the ability to have objects such as cars and trains to come in depending on what type of terrain this is. So let's make it possible for these ground pieces to be either grass, train, track, road, and what's the other thing? Water. Okay, so we're gonna go into this road in the home. And okay, back. Save this. Let's just collapse these. So we're gonna want to have this actor choose between 4 random different terrains. So, not change image. We're going to create a new attribute in this actor, integer, just so we can pick from 1 to 3, 4. We'll call this road type. And now we're going to change this attribute, road type, from a random integer from 1 to 4. So that when the screen opens, it will assign all these roads the different terrains. Change the attribute. Road type. To random from 1 to 4. Okay, so now we're going to assign these variables. So you create a rule when this attribute equals 1, you're going to assign that to grass. We'll do that right now. When the attribute self road type equals 1, road type equals 1, then you're going to change the image to grass. we can call this grass. We'll take this grass image here that I happen to have. And now we'll just copy this and do the same for all the other terrains. And we can collapse that when this equals 2. Call this road, and we'll take the road image. And then on to the next one. When this equals 3, call this track, and put in the track image. And again for the water. Now when we preview this, they should all be those assigned terrains randomly. And they are. And this looks a little ridiculous because my art is terrible. But just ignore that and think about the potential of this. This is great. So, you know, you have trains here. And you can make things more probable. So, the way to do that, if you wanted to, if you say you wanted more grass in this level or whatever, then you can go back and you can get rid of that, and we can change this random to like say 1 to 8, and we can assign these where if it equals 1 or if it equals 5. And how you do that is you just click this little add button here. And then you can change this to any. So if it's 1 or if it's, say, 5, road type, equals 5, then so this one is going to be twice as likely as these ones after we've assigned them. And let's say I want water to be more likely, so I can do the same thing, add another one, add 1 or 2, and we'll just change this from 5. And we'll do 6 and 7. Then we'll add another one to the grass after that. So I'll cut this part since my computer is being so slow. Road type. And again for this one, so these ones are 3 times more likely than road or track showing up in the scene. Attribute. Road type equals 8. And then we're done. And we'll just clap those back down. And now you can see when we do this, you'll see a lot more grass and water. So there's like more grass and water connected together. But this configuration is going to stay the same because this is just looping. And we're going to fix that in part 2. Well, everybody, if you watched this entire tutorial, congratulations, and be sure to subscribe for part 2. This is my first tutorial, so have mercy, and we'll see you in the next one.